Good day, Math Buddies! Sir Sherwin here, your Math Instructor. Welcome to another content where we are learning all about mathematics in an exciting and interesting way. And for today's video, we will learn on how to simplify expressions with rational exponents. But first, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification bell for more updated contents. So let's begin this math lesson now. Hello, dear math buddies! Thank you so much for watching my content and for the support I received from you. As what I mentioned earlier, this video will help us understand on how to simplify expressions with rational exponents.
The question is, what are rational exponents? Rational exponents are also known as fractional exponents. Rational exponents are exponents that consist rational numbers. In our previous video, we've learned on how to define rational numbers. And these rational numbers are numbers that can be written in the form a over b, where a and b are real numbers and b is not equal to 0. And these are some of the examples of expressions with rational exponents. These are x raised to 1/2, y raised to 3/8, 11m raised to 4/7, and quantity a cubed b raised to 1/2. So please put into mind this significant idea about expression with rational exponents. Laws of exponents can be applied in simplifying expressions containing rational exponents. With this, let's try to have our first example. Quantity m raised to 5/3 times quantity m raised to 4/3. This expression can be simplified using the product of powers. In our law of exponent, all we need to do is to copy our base and simply add our exponents. This means we will simply add 5/3 and 4/3. And we will apply the rules in adding our fractions. So let's simply add our numerator and copy the denominator. This means 5 plus 4, the sum is 9, and we will copy the denominator, which is 3. Simplifying this expression will lead us to m raised to 9/3. And 9/3 can be simplified as well as 3. This means our final answer would be m cubed. So this is how to simplify our expression with rational exponents. Let's have our second example. Let's simplify quantity k raised to 1/4 times quantity k raised to 2/3. Again, this expression can be simplified using the law of exponent, which is product of powers. As what we have done in our first example, all we need to do is to add the exponents. I am referring to the fraction 1/4 and 2/3. So in this case, we have different denominators. And in adding the similar fractions, first thing we will consider is to look for their common denominator. And the common denominator between 4 and 3 would be 12. Therefore, the equivalent fraction of 1/4 is 3 over 12, while the equivalent fraction of 2/3 is 8 over 12. In this case, we can combine our rational exponents by adding the numerator and copying the denominator. So 3 plus 8, that leads us to the sum of 11, and we will copy our denominator, which is 12. Thus, the answer in simplifying this expression would be k raised to 11 over 12. Let's have our third example. Let's simplify quantity p raised to 21, q raised to -15, r raised to -3, closed quantity raised to 1/3. From this certain expression, this can be simplified using the law of exponent, which is power of a power. And applying this rule, all we need to do is to simply multiply our exponents inside our grouping symbol to the exponent outside our grouping symbol. This leads us to multiplying the exponent of p, which is 21 and 1/3. So 21 and 1/3, that leads us to 21 over 3. While q raised to negative 15 raised to 1/3 leads us to a result of q raised to negative 15 all over 3. And r raised to negative 3 raised to 1/3 will have a result of r raised to negative 3 all over 3. First, let us simplify 21 over 3, and that is 7. Simplifying negative 15 over 3, that leads us to negative 5. And negative 3 over 3, that is negative 1. In this case, we noticed we have expressions with negative exponent. And in our previous content, we learned that expressions with negative exponent can be written into expression with positive exponent. Thus, we can simplify this expression as p raised to 7 all over q raised to the 5th power r. Let's have the next one. Simplify a raised to 1/2 all over a raised to 3/10. This expression can be simplified using the law of exponent, which is quotient of powers. In this certain rule, all we need to do is simply subtract our exponents. This leads us to a raised to 1/2 minus 3/10. And these rational exponents can be simplified by applying the rule in subtracting our fractions. So all we need to do is to look for the common denominator between 2 and 10. In this case, the common multiple between 2 and 10 is 10. So we will look for equivalent fractions of 1/2 with a denominator of 10, and that is 5/10. And simply copy 3/10. In this case, we can now subtract these two fractions, 5/10 minus 3/10, that leads us to a difference of 2/10. So just bear in mind as well that our fraction must be written in lowest term. And 2/10 can be written as 1/5. So our final answer would be a raised to 1/5. So this is one way on how to simplify expression with rational exponents. Let's have our next example. Quantity y raised to 2/3 all over y raised to 1/2 closed quantity squared. This expression can be simplified using power of a fraction, wherein the exponent outside our grouping symbol will be multiplied to every exponent present inside our grouping symbol, both in the numerator and in the denominator. This leads us to y raised to 4/3 all over y raised to 2/2. 4/3 is a result when we multiply 2/3 and 2, while 2/2 is a result when we multiply 1/2 and 2. Then, we will apply the next law of exponent as we simplify this expression, and that law is the quotient of powers, wherein we will subtract our exponents. So this leads us to y raised to 4/3 minus 2/2. Again, in subtracting our fractions, make sure to have a common denominator. And the common multiple between 3 and 2 would be 6. So we will look for the equivalent fractions of 4/3, which has a denominator of 6. Same with 2/2. So the equivalent fraction of 4/3 would be 8/6, and 2/2 has an equivalent fraction of 6 over 6. Then let's simplify. Y raised to 8/6 minus 6/6 will have a result of y raised to 2/6. And to write our rational exponent into lowest term, it leads us to y raised to 1/3. And y raised to 1/3 is considered the final answer as we simplify our expression in our example number 5.
Dear math buddies, the key idea on how to simplify expressions with rational exponents can be done easily if we are equipped with the idea about the different laws of exponents. And at the same time, having the idea on how to add, subtract, multiply and divide our fractions. And for you to understand it better, feel free to visit my channel and look for these lessons. Of course, I provided a link on the description box for you to access it easily. There you have it. Hope you learned something new today. God bless us all.